All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Wednesday wisdom, time for diving deeper into the Hermetica and the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs. And it is a beautiful day here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, it is beautiful wherever you are, and I thank you for joining me. We're diving into the subject in the section entitled The Circle of Time. The circle of time, ladies and gentlemen. In this chapter and in today's video, we and Hermes explore the nature of time and change. It's a deep subject, ladies and gentlemen, but that is our favorite place to go, always going down the deepest rabbit holes. In this series so far, it's been very fun, and I very much appreciate all of you joining me so far. We talked about the cosmos, the living cosmos, last week, and the week before that, we contemplated creation. And Hermes discussed and went through an understanding of how to see God by contemplating creation or reality. And that's a very important subject, I think, because we talked about it yesterday in our Tuesday Tao, living a God-realized life. Part of this ability to have appreciation or the ability to feel better because of your perspective. And this is why change your thoughts changes your life. Changing your thoughts changes your life, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why we've been researching that. But this goes back to this thought a couple weeks ago that we talked about with Thoth, or Hermes Trismegistus in the Hermetica, talking about how to see God by contemplating creation or reality. And so, then before that, we talked about the being of Atum, or what really is God and the nature of God. Hermes tells us that if we truly understood the extraordinary power of the human mind, of our very own minds, ladies and gentlemen, this is the great secret. Secret of the universe. What you think about expands. But it is one of the greatest and most strangest secrets is the power of our minds and the ability that our minds have and our consciousness to change our entire experience of reality or our experience of our lives. By the way, hope you got yourself some tea, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're comfy, or a cold beverage, whatever it is. Oh, the tea today says live consciously. It's just that simple. Live consciously. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's easy to say, harder to practice. I used to say, what was it? It's common sense, but is it common practice? There's so many things we know we should be grateful, and optimistic and helpful and kind to other people, and all of these positive qualities and characteristics that each of us want to experience more often in our lives. We all know it's common sense, but how much of it is common practice? And so live consciously, ladies and gentlemen. I thought that was good. Going back to this idea of the extraordinary power of the human mind, because Hermes tells us that if we truly understood that extraordinary power, then we would then know the nature of God, of source, of universe, of Tao, whatever that is for you, great spirit, grand organized design. I like to go with the force or universe, ladies and gentlemen, but it has been referenced by Hermes here in the writings of Hermes as Atum. And so the section a few weeks ago, section 4, I believe, was the being of Atum. And then before that, being of Atum was section 3. And before that, section 2 was the initiation of Hermes, and going into a vision of the creation of the cosmos and the universe. And then section 1 was the prophecies of Hermes. even more fascinating. And then in this series, before just giving a recap, if anybody hasn't joined us up till now, you can get an understanding of what we've been doing here, because it's been a lot of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you for joining me. And here in a second, we'll be diving into the circle of time. In an esoteric and occult or mystical description of the nature of time and change. And so before all of each of these sections, which is the writings of Hermes and then a dialogue about that from the authors Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy. Once again, we're reading from the Hermetica, Tarsha Cornerstone edition, Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy, The Lost Wisdom of the Pharaohs. Ladies and gentlemen, this wisdom ties into all the other things that we've been researching. That's the most interesting thing about once you get into spirituality or ancient mystical knowledge, or the esoteric or the hidden, the occult, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it the wisdom of the ages. But you start to discover that all of these subjects, whether it be spirituality, mystical stuff, philosophy, psychology, and many others, those are just the top ones that pop into my head, but they're all connected. The Tao Te Ching is talking about very similar subjects that the Hermetica is talking about. And it just goes throughout the spectrum. And I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, ladies and gentlemen. But before each of these sections, we then went through an introduction to the Hermetica and the history of the Hermetica, which was my favorite part at the beginning of this series, because it's just so powerful. But anyways, be sure to check that out. That was definitely my favorite part so far. But now we find ourselves section number 6, the circle of time. Once again, in this chapter, Hermes explores the nature of time and change. Now let's see, ladies and gentlemen, because I have no idea where this is going to go, what we learn from Hermes, Thoth, or Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest. The book begins by saying everything in the cosmos is constantly changing. So we're thinking about time here. Forget all the rambling I just said. I tend to do that. But if you've been here with me, you know that, ladies and gentlemen. Everything in the cosmos, excuse me, is constantly changing. Things are born, pass away, and come into existence again, like old plants dying each winter, and return as new shoots each spring. Now I'll jump in. That's a good reference there. It's good to think of when we're thinking of these cycles, whether it be the great year of, the entire transition or movement or procession through each of the houses of the zodiac through, roughly 24,000 years. Or be it that on a smaller scale, as we see here in the micro, as the seasons in the sets of 3, 6, 9, and 12. And then what would seem to be in nature a decay as you watch the trees. See, it was an interesting thought that the tree, somebody might say, I forget, I'm just going to say it. How could the trees be so foolish as to fight amongst themselves? But that wasn't the thought. The other idea is that the trees know, they have a knowledge, or they have a wisdom. This might sound crazy, but let me get there. Hang on, because they know when to go through this cycle of old plants dying each winter and returning each spring, shedding of the leaves. It's not like they're stupid and the snow falls on the leaves and they get too heavy and it falls off or whatever. They literally know when they have to do this to keep themselves alive for the next season. So that's just an interesting reference to Atum, or God in nature, Tao, source, doing nothing but leaving nothing undone. This And so all these changes, the book continues, however, are governed by unchanging natural laws. And that's what we've been discovering, researching this wisdom of the Pharaohs, wisdom of the ages, is that there are these principles and these laws that make up and govern reality. And so we've been discovering these laws and how they work. Last week was especially deep on each of these principles or dynamics that I thought it was funny. I said last week that it could possibly be put together in a diagram that may look like some kind of electrical diagram in nature. That stood out to me, that thought. Let me know what you think about that. So everything in the cosmos, ladies and gentlemen, is constantly changing, going through these cycles, just like we experience here on the micro from the macro, as above, so below. Dying each winter to return to new shoots each spring, and these changes are governed by unchanging universal or natural law, natural laws. In this way, therefore, this is the book continuing, quote, in this way, therefore, it could also be said that the cosmos is essentially changeless, despite the fact, I'm adding now, that it is changing all the time. See, that is one of the principles, in a sense, or a mixture of a couple of them, is that it is changing, but also changeless. And see, you have to understand paradoxes to not have that boggle the mind, but a good paradox is necessary to boggle the mind every now and then, ladies and gentlemen. But we've talked about paradoxes a lot before on this channel, and it's one of my favorite things. I love a good paradox because it really gets you to think deeper about something and say, wait a minute, what does that really mean? And that is where we come to discover true knowledge for ourselves, and hopefully eventually, because what we're doing here is trying to create an ability through research, through coming to discover, and through practice and all of this, create an ability within ourselves in order to have a higher quality of experience in life, in order to increase the quality of our experience. And we're trying to do that through a greater awareness and a greater understanding of reality through the wisdom of the ages. Because this powerful wisdom, not just the Hermetica, but the Hermetica itself, has influenced figures including Blake, Newton, Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, and many, many other great minds throughout history. I think last week we learned it was Norman Vincent Peale was influenced by the esoteric and the occult Hermetic philosophies. Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird? And so we will continue now about time, ladies and gentlemen. It could be said that the cosmos is essentially changeless. Time regulates the natural processes of change in the cosmos. It is measured by the recurring cycles of the stars and the sun, which revolved in fixed permanent orbits. This is going to be a deep, I can't wait to get into the words of Hermes here. We're just going through the little section that the authors put to describe the words of Hermes, and then we will get into what Hermes actually says. But this is powerful, ladies and gentlemen. So we're thinking about cycles and change, but then things that are fixed and changeless at the same time. Time regulating the process of change in the cosmos. Because people can say time is just wouldn't exist, and it's only relative to our position on the planet and all of these ideas, which is just fine. But this is a deeper way to go, ladies and gentlemen. It is measured by the recurring cycles of the stars and the sun. I'm repeating these things on purpose. If you're wondering yourself, he's saying these things. It's on purpose, ladies and gentlemen. It helps us to get it into our mind. And so the reoccurring cycles of the stars and the sun, which are different, which revolved in fixed permanent orbits, which is weird. It's like they're fixed, but they're moving at the same time. So once again, this paradox. Unlike, continuing with the book here, our modern picture of time as a straight line from the past to the future, Hermes sees time as a circle. And so did the ancients. And see, this is, for me, this is going back to the previous golden age that isn't in our canon of history, so to speak, ladies and gentlemen, but I truly know did exist at some time halfway through the cycle ago. And I think we are heading back to that time when this wisdom of the ages, this lost ancient knowledge, not really lost, but just handed down through the dark ages, which is part of the cycle as well, when the fall of consciousness took us to a much lower quality of experience or a much lower quality of life, but we are on the climb back up. And so when I'm thinking about these cycles and all of this, like looking at our picture of time as a linear rather than cyclical, all the ancients, those who had the knowledge from the previous time when we were far more advanced consciously, spiritually, and physically than we could possibly imagine, we thought of time as a cycle. And so it might be a good idea to begin to adopt that perspective. Just an offering. We too, the book continues, actually measure time in circles. However, a day is a circle of time which begins again when the sun rises each morning. Now, this is significant in different spiritual traditions across the world. The year is a circle of time measured by the Earth's orbit around the sun. Vaster circles of time are expressed by the movements of the constellations of the stars. Now, you might be saying, well, yes, this is all very basic, but we're thinking of this in a much deeper way, philosophically, spiritually, and how this applies to the wisdom of understanding reality and the nature of reality, and how this can apply to our experience of life and using the knowledge. All of these cycles eventually bring things back to where they started. It is impossible to say where that is, however, for a circle has no starting point. I'll add, to come to the place to where you started from, but know it for the very first time. I love that one. You cannot say where it begins and where it ends, which is why cycles can be looked at much more differently than our modern viewpoint, I'm adding, of this, the end being disaster, rather than a starting anew. It's just a different perspective. Remember, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And in turn, it changes your experience. So, Hermes ultimately points to a deeper understanding of time. Past has gone and does not exist. The future has yet to happen and does not exist. The present moment passes so quickly that it seems to have no permanence. I added the word seems, but it seems to have no permanence. Before we have even said now, the moment has gone. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we can never catch the present. So, in what way could it be said to exist? In what way can it be said to even exist at all? And that will boggle the mind. Do we even exist, ladies and gentlemen? Or is it just a quantum happening of electric, magnetic, and electromagnetic fields pulsing at vibrational, frequencies and resonances and polarities? that we see as the reality that we look at, but it's really just a bunch of if you're getting value, consider subscribing. All right. So that was deep. The future is yet to happen. The past is gone, doesn't currently exist. And the present moment goes so fast that it seems to not even exist at all. This mystical insight into the illusory nature of time is a way to glimpse the oneness of God. See, ladies and gentlemen, this always comes back to the same exact subject. I swear the last 5 videos on this channel, I've literally come back, maybe all of them, to that one subject, is that these different avenues of thought and philosophy, mystical, spiritual, the mystery schools, ladies and gentlemen, always come back to a way to glimpse the oneness, source, Atum, or God, who exists, the book continues, beyond time. For God, for that which we are connected to, remember, there is no past, which we are a part of. There is no present and future, only all of it at once. Eternity is what the book says. But try to think of that. If you could see all of time at once, and it's never separated. I mean, that's hard for us to wrap our minds around because we've never spent much time contemplating that idea, because we're constantly in what we've been indoctrinated culturally to think of as this line of time that we're going down. And we only get each of these times, and there's no way that you could, but imagine if you could be outside of time and space and reality as we know it, but still look back at it and be able to experience all of time whenever you want it. You go here, you go there, you go there, but none of it is happening separately from itself. It is all simultaneously happening at once. Which somebody, when I was talking about past lives a lot years ago, so a coworker, he was a good manager too. Hope that guy's doing well. But he brought up this idea and he was like, but what about future lives? Because if past lives, if time is really just all simultaneously happening, because we were going down these rabbit holes. I've been thinking about this stuff for years, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just getting to it with you here now. So if you're joining me, thank you. I appreciate that. But this idea that all of time is simultaneously happening, so your past lives could technically also be future lives. I think there's a video on this channel from a long time ago called Past Lives and Future Lives. I probably explained what I was thinking about better back then. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue and get to what Hermes has to talk about on the subject of time in this occult and esoteric, mystical, mystery school kind of knowledge. To me, it's spiritual philosophy, but everybody has a different name for this stuff. And so, you cannot say where it begins and ends. This mystical insight into the illusory nature of time is a way to glimpse the oneness of God who exists beyond time. And so for God, there is no past, present, and future, only eternity. That's what we were rambling about, sorry. Freeing ourselves from the illusion of time. And this is yet another way that we can experience God, Atum, Source, Oneness, Tao, Force, ladies and gentlemen. And so with that being said, we come to the words of Thoth. And it's not as long this time, so let's dive right into it, ladies and gentlemen. The circle of time. Thoth begins, or Hermes Trismegistus, begins by saying, in a sense, the cosmos is changeless because its motions are determined by unalterable laws. which cause it to revolve eternally, without beginning and end. Its parts manifest, disappear, and are created anew, again and again, in the undulating pulse of time. Through the process of time, life within the cosmos is regulated and maintained. Time renews all things in the cosmos by the circling process of change, measured by the heavenly bodies, returning to their former positions as they revolve around the heavens. The present issues from the past, and the future from the present. Everything is made one by this continuity. Time is like a circle, where all the points are so linked that you cannot say where it begins or ends. For all points both precede and follow one another forever. Yet there is an even deeper understanding. The past has departed and no longer is. The future has not arrived and is yet to be. Even the present does not last. So how can it be said to exist when it doesn't stay still for a moment? And that ends the words of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, on time. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, that went so fast. That was fantastic. And we're going to go through that a little bit more. The next section is the gods. And in that chapter, which will be next week, Hermes will discuss the many powers through which God administers creation. And I think this will go into a lot of astrology and astrotheology, working through the planetary gods, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to that. I almost want to dive into it now because it has a lot to do with this subject of time. But let's keep it short and sweet this week, ladies and gentlemen. Our video yesterday, I think, was only about half an hour, 40 minutes, rather than our normal hour long. But anyways, I really liked how simple and to the point this one was, and how it stated, yet there is an even deeper understanding, because a lot of people could very easily dismiss this as common sense. But that would be too bad. We're looking at a deeper mystical understanding, ladies and gentlemen. And so it begins by saying, Hermes began by saying, or Thoth, in a sense, the cosmos is changeless because its motions are determined by unalterable laws. So those laws always coming up, which cause it to revolve eternally without beginning or end. So see, it's interesting there. We're talking about time, but then it revolves eternally. So that's, once again, this paradox of it being, everything is made one by this continuity, it said. The present coming from the past and the future from the present. It is technically all one thing. And that is determined by these unalterable laws, unchanging laws. That's another thing to understand about universal law or natural law, is that it's unchangeable. It's what holds the whole working system of reality and non-physical reality and the different, levels of reality that there are. I'm sure other people would know more about that than I do. But, ladies and gentlemen, there is rules that keep the system working, that keep reality and the universe and the cosmos and whatever you want to call all of this working the way that it does. And these rules have to be obeyed in order for things to function. And so, but it's interesting talking about these unalterable laws and these motions of the cosmos revolving eternally without beginning and end. So it is just, that boggles me. It gets me. I'm like, wait a minute. It's doing all this process, but it's not going anywhere. Or is it? I don't know. This is why we're contemplating this. Remember, I want to go back again, and I'm going to do this every week on this series. The very first section on the prophecies of Hermes, the first thing that Thoth says is pure philosophy is spiritual striving through constant contemplation. And that process is to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God. I would translate of reality and of source and of force and of whatever it is that we are a part of and that we are hopefully working with, co-creating, aligning, trying to create our lives and affect the world that we find ourselves in, this human experience as a spiritual being, and try to make change for the positive in this experience of duality so that we can learn and grow on a soul level. I would expect that's the way I think of it. But this constant contemplation, ladies and gentlemen, Hermes said in his prophecies, he says, but speaking now in prophecy, I say that in times to come, no one will pursue philosophy with single-mindedness and purity of heart. Now, this is what I'm getting at when we're talking about time and how people could say, oh, this is just common sense. How many of us are really pursuing this pure philosophy and spiritual striving to attain true knowledge of reality and what people have described as God for centuries, that we have been misled to misunderstand? And that we are and have been for thousands of years, as far as we know, in a time of where people were not pursuing philosophy. I'm rambling, ladies and gentlemen. And so this goes back to what we were saying, this very fascinating continuity and this understanding and this constant contemplation to understand the workings of God, the nature of reality. And in today's meditation or study, you can call it whatever you want. We were talking about time. It's very fascinating to me on how, meditation can be taken as one way, and then another way you could say, well, I was just thinking, and that could be considered a different form of meditation. It's interesting when you look up the different forms of Zen, or the different descriptions or varieties of meditation and contemplation. What we're going down here is the Egyptian or Hermetic versions. But we are discovering the mystery schools, ladies and gentlemen. And I think before we finish here, everything is made one by this continuity, is like a circle where all points are so linked so that you cannot say where it begins or ends. Yet there is a deeper understanding. The past has departed. See that bit there about following one another forever. So it says, for all points on this continuity of oneness, even though there are separate points, it's all one. This is a deeper paradoxes, ladies and gentlemen. But for all points, both precede and follow one another forever. So they go behind and in front of each other forever. And so they are never, once again, it is this paradox. They are both things, but neither at the same time. It is doing nothing and leaving nothing undone. Deep stuff, ladies and gentlemen, deep rabbit holes, just more contemplation, like Hermes said. It's like this mystical insight into the illusory nature of time is a way to glimpse the oneness of God and get a deeper understanding of what Hermes is doing here is describing Atum in reality, which is Atum, or the Tao or force or God, source, whatever that be for you, ladies and gentlemen. The future has not arrived and is yet to be, so the deeper understanding here is knowing about how fleeting time is and understanding that the moment is where it is, and even that is so fleeting. Past has departed and no longer is, the future has not arrived and is yet to be, even the present does not last, so how can it be said to exist? It's worth contemplating, ladies and gentlemen, when it doesn't even stay still for a moment. To the ancient Egyptians, the night sky was seen as the body of the black goddess sprinkled with stars. In the Hermetica, she is known as the great goddess Destiny, whose unalterable laws are written in the unchanging star fields of the constellation. The constellations, ladies and gentlemen, that's a taste of what we'll be diving into next week. I really look forward to that. Each one of these has been fantastic, and I really appreciate you for joining me and Hermes and Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus and Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy, the authors of this book, and Dr. Wayne W. Dyer and Lao Tzu, and all the wonderful authors and poets of the wisdom of the ages, which was the series we started with doing Wednesday Wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. So if you've been here and joining me on Wednesdays, I thank you so much. I truly appreciate the support that you give me. It means a ton to me, and it keeps me doing this, ladies and gentlemen. And so, with that being said, remember, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, a greater awareness and a greater understanding of our reality so that we can create a higher quality of experience. And remember to seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. And also, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. It's the activity that we have to bring to life. And when we can do that, when we can bring happiness to life, then all the things that we've been striving for rather than arriving, all the things we've been striving, telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, but I can't be now, become irrelevant because we are there. And then we can enjoy, hopefully, the entire journey. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I love and appreciate all of you, and it means so much that you would join me here with all of these wonderful figures that give us some sparks from the ether and that can help us pull down some, hopefully, good entertainment and value to bring you here. And if you did get value, consider subscribing, smash the like button, and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And if you'd like one of my landscape paintings, be sure to expand the description below the video and check out the link to my Etsy shop as well as a link to the book so you can get it for yourself to put it on your shelf. I actually just built my bookshelf yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to be transitioning some things, and I should have my bookshelf right here for future videos. So that reference actually makes sense. But anyway, expand the description, get the book for yourself to put it on your shelf, and also get yourself some C60 Purple Power, the most powerful antioxidant known to man, and get yourself the gift of health, ladies and gentlemen. That's also linked below. I've been taking C60 for probably 4 or 5 years now. It goes quick. Time really has been flying, ladies and gentlemen, but no news is good news, right? No news is good news. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again. Be the change that you want to see. Be the example in the world. And I will see you next Tuesday on Tuesday Dow, and next Wednesday for continuing the lost wisdom of the Pharaohs and Hermes and Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be the change you want to see. Be the example. No, 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 no.